the classic, your trademark line come from? How did that happen? Where did the "see you" come from?
That is high school. That's Philadelphia high school talk. Tough guys don't ever say, take care, look forward to going out with you again tomorrow for more beer and broads. It was always, see you. And you punch the guy when you say it. So when we'd be out, like, you don't say goodbye, because it's not very macho. It was always, see you. And you just punch the person in the shoulder. Well, obviously I can't do that. Can't walk around punching people. And that just became a way. You just don't say goodbye. I mean, goodbye. It's Philly. Goodbye.
It's kind of like, I guess, the howdy here, right?
Howdy. Right. And it's just, and if somebody went up north and did a morning show, they, howdy, where the hell did you pick that up? Redneck, you know.
How much of Philadelphia is still in you?
A lot. I mean, Philly is I grew up in a very blue-collar, tough neighborhood, so I really don't take a lot of gruff from people. I hang up on bad interviewers. Like, I've hung up on Heath Ledger, hung up on Carmen Electra. I don't really have patience for bad manners and bad attitude. I can get that, and I can fly back to Philly and get that. So a lot of times in radio, hosts are afraid and get uncomfortable when the guest isn't like, the guest sucks. It's like, okay, you got to go. So as a Philly guy, I have no problem, absolutely no problem with Heath Ledger. Dude, you're out. You're done. We're done with you. Goodbye.
What was he doing?
He was being a real jerk in the interview. I asked him about it. He was dating, I think, Heather Graham at the time. And he goes, I don't want to talk about Heather Graham. He says, I'm here to plug my movie. I said, goodbye. And hung up. And it was just, and then I remember Carmen Electra had that same attitude. So being from Philly, you just don't have a long, you just don't have a lot of patience for bad manners, especially from a guest. So that's the other thing. And I throw people out of the studio. I mean, I have no problem with that. And the sidekicks are always like, oh my God, get out.
It makes great radio, right? I'm sure
trust me, I've always left the mic on when I throw people out of the studio, just in case,
What's the audience reaction like when you kick those big stars off?
Okay, how's this? When Heath Ledger died, the next morning, I remember coming on the air, right? For like an hour, all people talked about was, I remember when you hung up on Heath Ledger. So for an hour, and when I remember, and I don't know, it's one of those things, I don't know if you actually heard it or heard about it, but it lasted, I mean, gosh, that was years ago, and he just passed away this past year. And the other thing is, people agree, they're like, he was rude. And we're glad that you got him off the show, because we don't want our children to hear that kind of bad attitude. I always feel if you're coming on my show, you're selling something. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody goes on Letterman because they like Dave. They go on because they have a new movie, TV, whatever. You should at least be gracious. Like, thanks for the exposure to come on your show and plug my movie or my whatever. So that's when the Philly comes out of me.
And being a morning show, there are some morning shows that, like in Houston, people would know Stevens and Pruitt was kind of the shock jocks. But you've been on top 40 stations, family stations. How much do you think about that when you're putting on the show? I mean, obviously you do have probably kids in the car listening with mom or dad. And how much does that play a part when you're planning the show?
Well, two things my wife has said, because we were talking about Howard Stern once, and I think he had signed at that point, a $20 million a year deal. This is a while back. And I said, wouldn't that be cool, And she said, no, I would never want you to do that, because I never want to be embarrassed by what you do, right? And all the stuff that he, obviously, it really led to a very strong marriage that he had with Allison.
Yeah, right.
And so she always said, don't ever embarrass me, And the other thing is, now I'm a daddy, so my little boy's been in the car for years. He calls the show all the time. I know he's listening, so I'm not going to, you just can't say things that are blue or overly obvious. If you don't make a double entendre remark and you can mask it well enough that educated people can pick up on it, that kid's great. But knowing my little boy's in the car, I could never. It'd be like if you have a kid and he's in the car and he's listening to some schmuck DJ, and your kid goes, Daddy, what does that mean? You're like, oh! So I've always been able to, that's what made us number one with Women in the Morning in Houston, is by just being funny, but speak, be as clean as possible. And if there's anything that might be questionable, let the guest say. Let the guest be the one who says whatever. And you go, hey, family show, I used to say all the time. It's a family show.
What makes a good host? Why do people listen to one person over another?
The research has found that the reason people listen is because they can relate quickly to that person. There's 1 million disc jockeys. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe 500,000 after next week. And you're in the car and a woman's in the car and they listen, they like the voice, but then oh, okay, they're talking about things that I was shopping at the mall and I remember that person in line story, and it's just being relatable. It's just telling stories, not that everyone can relate to, as often as possible. Sometimes they'll never be relatable, but they're enjoyable stories. Regis and Kelly will tell a story about he lives in the high-rise with Donald Trump. Nobody can relate to it, but it's an enjoyable story.
Sure.
But for the most part, Regis is relating. So I always try to relate. And once in a while, you're going to tell a story about you and Elton John, or you and you're at the White House, or you on a private jet with somebody, and you'll just share it so they can enjoy the story.
How much of the show is spontaneous and how much is planned out? Because I think people wouldn't realize how much you put into the show outside of the time you're on the air. It's not like you just can walk in and
No,
go.
you can't. There's a guy I worked with, though. Until he tried it, didn't last. The show, I always say, this is my opinion, is about 70% planned from the day before, right? Like, I'm here at the gym, I have my text, and I'm watching ESPN, and I'm like, oh my God, get Chris Brown on, because he's going to kick, or Rob Baronis kick a long field goal, get his opinion. Make sure the mayor's on, and call Mary Hart, right? Because you're constantly thinking. But you walk in, and Ken Lay dies. Okay? So, you have to be ready to throw out everything. But about 70% should be in what I call in the can. I'll mull and thump the producer all the time, for kids at the station. Is this and that in the can? Do we have the sound bite from Britney Spears? Is the whatever survey ready? Do we have the video to put up on the web? It's impossible to really walk in for 4 hours. You can do it by one day, you can't do it 5 days a week. 20 days a month.
And speaking of shows, I think everyone would associate Maria Todd with Sam Malone in this city.
Yeah.
I mean, you two were a big team.
My wife.
Yeah, exactly. Your work wife, right? How come you two work so well together? What is it? Just immediate chemistry that you can't explain, or is there more than that?
I have no idea. I hired Maria in 1990, right? September of 1990, and we didn't get along. She was my news girl, and she was just this. Oh my God, she had so much anger. She had such a chip on her shoulder, and I was at that point, I would wear like nice sweaters and oxide, whatever, and she would have her Malcolm X shirt on and her like Malcolm X hat on, and I would just look at her, she'd look at me, I'm like, could we be any more opposite? And something made her laugh one day. I said something, she just looked at you like she was about to fight, and she smiled. She's a beautiful smile, And I made her laugh again, and then she started coming out of her shell. And I don't know what it was. We just clicked at Buffalo in like 92 or something. And we realized, as different as we are, we had so much in common intellectually. We love the same television shows. We love the same food. We both love to eat. We both love to eat, like that. We both, love like this kind of movie. We both dig and got laughing. Dick Van Dyke, Hill Street Blues, Bills football, whatever. And then we just joined forces on the things that we like. And she is so talented. It wasn't even working with her. You could just say anything. Packet of sugar. Oh, let me tell you something about packet of sugar. And I would jump in, and she would jump in, and she was really good, really talented. I've been talking to her a lot. She's real sweet. She cracks me up.
So she's down in San Francisco, is that right? How is she doing out there?
Bitching about how expensive it is. I mean, every time I talk to her, would you believe it's $33,000 a month, man, for a one bedroom, whatever. But I miss her, and she misses me, because we just have that. Our old station manager called it lightning in a bottle. It was just never happens in radio where two people just click up and hook up.
Yeah, because you could go through your whole career and never have another Maria Todd.
Yeah, it was just, there just are. I mean, she's just a one of a kind. She's self-deprecating, which is so enjoyable. Like, I put myself down, look, I'm just a fat loser with a red mustache, so on and so on. She goes, oh no, you ain't fat. I look those, I'm 72 pounds heavier than I was, and it's just enjoyable. When she tells her stories about dating, women in radio are so, want to be the know-all, the end-all, the prettiest, the smartest, wired inch. I don't know nothing. You hear her open up the paper. Let me see what it says. Oh my God, Britney Spears got married. And it's just she was an artist. She's a real radio artist. Good girl.